Spring arrived quietly in the small English village of Willowbrook. The cold winter days were finally ending, and the sun began to shine a little brighter each morning. Birds returned to the trees, singing sweet songs that filled the air with happiness. The grass looked greener, and tiny colorful flowers started to appear along the pathways. Emily, a young girl who lived in the village, loved spring more than any other season. She enjoyed watching nature wake up after the long, gray winter. Every year, spring made her feel hopeful, as if the world was starting fresh again. One morning, Emily opened her window and breathed in the cool, fresh air. She could smell flowers and wet earth from the gardens nearby. Outside, she saw her neighbor, Mrs. Carter, planting new seeds in her yard. "Good morning, Emily," Mrs. Carter called with a warm smile. "Good morning," Emily replied happily. "Spring is finally here." Mrs. Carter nodded. "Yes, it is. It's the season of new beginnings." Emily thought about those words as she put on her light jacket and stepped outside. The village looked different now. The streets were brighter, and people seemed happier. Children played in the park again, and shop owners decorated their windows with spring colors. Emily decided to take a walk to the meadow just outside Willowbrook. It was her favorite place in springtime. As she walked, she noticed small lambs in the fields, jumping playfully beside their mothers. She stopped for a moment, smiling at the peaceful scene. When she reached the meadow, Emily sat down on the soft grass. The gentle breeze touched her face, and she listened to the sound of bees buzzing around the flowers. Everything felt calm and beautiful. Emily took out her notebook. She loved writing about the seasons, and spring always gave her the best ideas. She began to write about the colors, the smells, and the feeling of hope in the air. While she was writing, she noticed something unusual near the edge. Emily's fingers trembled slightly as she touched the wooden box. It was cold and rough, as if it had been resting under the tree for many years. The carvings on the lid were delicate, shaped like spring flowers and twisting vines. Emily looked around the meadow, half expecting someone to appear and tell her to leave it alone. But the meadow was quiet. Only the sound of birds and the soft buzzing of bees filled the air. Slowly, Emily lifted the lid. Inside the box, she found several items carefully placed together. There was a small glass jar filled with dried lavender, a folded piece of paper tied with a ribbon, and an old silver key. The key looked mysterious, as if it belonged to a secret door somewhere in the village. Emily picked up the paper first. The ribbon was faded, but she untied it gently. Her heart beat faster as she unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat but old-fashioned. It read, "To the one who finds this box in spring, you have discovered." The metal felt cool against her skin. She turned it over and noticed something engraved on it, a small symbol of a rose. Emily frowned. "A rose," she whispered. Willowbrook had many gardens, but the largest and most famous one belonged to the old manor at the edge of the village. The manor was surrounded by high stone walls, and inside was a rose garden that no one was allowed to enter anymore. People said the manor had been abandoned for years. Some villagers believed it was haunted. Others said it simply held too many sad memories. Emily had always been curious about. Emily could not stop thinking about the key. Even as she walked through the village streets, everything felt different, as if Willowbrook itself was hiding something. The cottages, the gardens, the smiling neighbors, they all seemed normal, yet Emily felt as though she was seeing them through new eyes. When she arrived home, she hurried into her room and placed the key on her desk. It shone softly in the afternoon light. The rose symbol looked almost alive, like it was calling her. That evening, Emily sat at the dinner table with her parents. Her mother served warm soup, and her father talked about work, but Emily barely listened. "Emily," her mother said gently, "you seem distracted. Is something wrong?" Emily hesitated. She wanted to tell them, but something inside her felt cautious. The note had said the truth was hidden. Maybe it was not something everyone knew. "I'm fine," Emily replied quietly. "Just thinking about spring." Her father smiled. "Spring makes people dream. That's normal." Emily nodded, but her heart was racing. Later that night, when the house was silent, Emily took the key and slipped outside. The air was cool, and the moonlight painted the village in silver. She walked carefully, her footsteps soft on the cobblestone path. She knew where she was going. The old manor. It stood at the edge of Willowbrook, beyond the last row of houses. The building was tall and dark, with windows like empty eyes. Ivy climbed the walls, and the iron gate in front looked rusted from years of neglect. Emily stopped at the gate, feeling a chill run down her spine. "This is crazy," she whispered. But her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She pushed the gate gently. To her surprise, it opened with a loud creak, as if it had been waiting for her. Emily stepped inside. The garden was overgrown, filled with wild grass and tangled bushes. But in the center, she could see it clearly, the rose garden. Even in the darkness, she noticed the shape. Emily's footsteps echoed softly, as she walked down the stone staircase. The air grew colder with every step, and the faint moonlight from above slowly disappeared. She held the key tightly in her hand, as if it could protect her. At the bottom of the stairs, she reached a small underground hallway. The walls were made of damp stone, and the silence felt heavy. Emily hesitated, listening carefully. She could hear nothing but her own breathing. Then she noticed something ahead. A lantern. It was sitting on a wooden table, and beside it was a box of matches, as if someone had prepared it long ago. Emily's hands shook as she picked up a match and struck it. A tiny flame appeared, and she lit the lantern. Warm light filled the hallway, revealing more details. There were old paintings hanging on the walls, covered in dust. Emily stepped closer and wiped one gently with her sleeve. It showed a young woman standing in the rose garden, smiling brightly. She looked almost the same age as Emily. Emily frowned. "Who are you?" she whispered. She continued walking until she reached a wooden door at the end of the hallway. Unlike the first door, this one looked stronger, newer, as if it had been protected. Emily pushed it open slowly. Inside was a hidden room. It was filled with shelves of books, small boxes, and papers stacked carefully. The room felt like a secret library. In the center stood a desk, and on top of it was another letter. Emily stepped forward, her heart racing. The letter was addressed to Emily Harper. Emily froze. How does someone know my name?" she murmured. With trembling fingers, she opened it. The handwriting was the same as the note from the meadow. It read, "Emily. If you are reading this, then the key has chosen you. Your family has lived in Willowbrook for generations, but there is a truth your parents never told you. This manor belonged to your grandmother, Rose Harper, before she disappeared in the spring of 1985. Emily barely slept that night. Her mind was full of the hidden room, the letter, and the name she could not forget, Rose Harper. Her grandmother disappeared in 1985. How could her parents never tell her? When morning finally arrived, pale sunlight filled her bedroom. Birds were singing outside, and the village seemed peaceful, as if nothing dark had ever happened there. But Emily knew the truth was buried beneath that calm surface. At breakfast, Emily tried to act normal. Her mother poured tea, and her father read the newspaper. "Did you sleep well?" her mother asked. Emily forced a small smile. Yes, mostly. Her father nodded. It's a beautiful spring day. Maybe you should go for a walk. Emily's heart jumped. A walk. That was exactly what she planned. After breakfast, she put on her jacket and slipped the silver key into her pocket. Her hands felt cold even though the air outside was warm. She walked quickly through the village, keeping her head down. People smiled and greeted her, unaware of where she was going. Soon, she reached the old manor again. In daylight, it looked less frightening, but still lonely. The iron gate stood open, just as she had left it. Emily stepped inside and crossed the overgrown garden, until she reached the rose garden. The rose bushes were tangled and wild, but they were alive. Small buds were beginning to bloom, as if spring refused to let them die. Emily remembered the letter's words. Look beneath the oldest rose bush. She searched carefully, walking slowly along the stone paths. Some bushes looked younger, their branches thin and fresh. Others were thick and twisted with age. Then she saw it. One rose bush stood larger than the rest, its roots pushing up against the earth like ancient hands. Its branches were heavy, covered in sharp thorns. Emily knelt beside it. Her breath was unsteady as she began to dig with her hands. The soil was soft from spring rain. She dug deeper, ignoring the dirt under her na. Emily kept the locket hidden in her pocket, as she walked back through the village. Her thoughts were spinning. The photograph inside the locket felt like a door opening into a past she never knew existed. Rose Harper was real. Her grandmother had not been just a name, or a forgotten memory. She had lived here, walked these same paths, and she had disappeared without explanation. And now Emily was holding a piece of her secret. When she reached home, she went straight to her room and locked the door. She sat on her bed and opened the locket again, studying the photograph closely. Rose looked young and happy, her smile bright like spring sunshine. But the man beside her was unfamiliar. He wore a dark coat, and his expression was serious. Emily whispered, "Who are you?" She searched through old family albums in her closet, hoping to find the same face, but she found nothing. It was as if the man had been erased from their history. That afternoon, Emily decided she could not stay silent anymore. She needed answers, and the only people who might know were her parents. At dinner, she waited until her father put down his fork. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said carefully. Her mother looked up. "Of course." Emily took a deep breath. "Who was Rose Harper?" The room went still. Her mother's face turned pale, and her father's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why are you asking about her?" her father said slowly. Emily's heart pounded. "I found something that belongs to her." Her mother's hand trembled as she set down her glass. "Emily," she whispered, "you shouldn't be looking into that." Emily's voice grew stronger. "Why not? She was my grandmother. Why have you never told me she disappeared?" Her father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "That is enough," he said sharply. "This is not a story for you." Emily felt anger rise inside her. "Not a story for me. It's my family." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "We want." Emily's hands were shaking as she stared at her father. The words he had spoken echoed in her mind. "That man is the reason she disappeared." The room felt smaller, heavier, as if the air itself carried the weight of the past. Emily looked between her parents, searching their faces for answers. Her mother was crying silently, her shoulders trembling. Her father stood still, his eyes fixed on the locket, as though it had awakened something he had tried to bury for years. Emily swallowed hard. "Who is he?" she asked again, her voice quieter now but filled with urgency. What happened to Grandma Rose? Her father sat down slowly, as if his strength had left him. He rubbed his forehead and sighed deeply. His name was Thomas Blackwood, he began. He was not from Willowbrook. He came here in the early 1980s, claiming he was a historian. He said he was studying the manor and the village's past. Emily listened carefully, her heart pounding. At first, her father continued, people welcomed him. He was polite, intelligent, charming. But Rose, she discovered something about him. Emily leaned forward. What did she discover? Her father hesitated, then spoke in a low voice. She found out he wasn't just a historian. He was searching for something hidden beneath the manor. Something valuable. Something that had been kept secret for generations. Emily's breath caught. Like treasure. Her mother shook her head quickly. Not treasure, she whispered. Something worse. Emily's skin prickled with fear. What could be worse than treasure? Her father looked at her, his eyes full of pain. Truth, he said. The kind of truth that destroys families, ruins reputations, and brings danger. Emily felt cold all over. Rose told your grandfather, her father continued. She wanted to expose Thomas. She believed he was dangerous. But before she could, she vanished. Emily's voice broke. Did Thomas hurt her? Her mother sobbed softly. We don't know. The next morning, Emily awoke before sunrise. Her mind was restless, filled with thoughts of her grandmother, the mysterious Thomas Blackwood, and the hidden secrets of the manor. She could no longer wait. Today, she would return to the rose garden and continue her search. She dressed quietly, careful not to wake her parents. The locket rested against her chest, warm and heavy with history. Emily's heart beat faster with every step she took through the sleepy village streets. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of flowers and dew. When she arrived at the manor, the iron gate creaked softly as she pushed it open. The garden looked different in the pale morning light. Dew glistened on the leaves, and the roses swayed gently in the breeze. Emily felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. She knelt beside the oldest rose bush, the one where she had found the metal box days ago. The soil was soft from the spring rain. She began to dig carefully, her fingers moving through the earth, uncovering layers of history that had been hidden for decades. After a few moments, her fingers touched something solid. Emily pulled it out slowly. It was a small wooden chest, reinforced with iron, unlike the delicate box she had discovered before. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside, she found a collection of letters, photographs, and a leather-bound journal. The journal's cover was worn, and the pages smelled of age and secrets. Emily carefully opened it and began to read. The handwriting was her grandmother's. Each page told a story of courage, love, and fear. Rose had discovered Thomas Blackwood's true intentions. He had been searching for a powerful document hidden in the manor, a document that could change the history of Willowbrook and put its residents at risk. Emily's heart pounded. Her grandmother had tried to protect the village, to keep the secret safe. That was why she disappeared. She had hidden herself and the evidence. Emily felt a surge.